Hi, and welcome to Foundations of LGBTQ Inclusion. Today we'll be covering some foundational terms, concepts, and tips for how you can create an environment of respect for everyone here at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. First, let's take a look at why this topic is important. You may also be wondering how this topic might impact your work. At the core of the Einstein-Montefiore mission is the pursuit of justice in meeting the healthcare needs of all individuals, including those from underserved communities. LGBTQ people are an important part of the diversity of our community, and a culture of inclusion necessitates understanding and respecting LGBTQ identities. Next, our non-discrimination policy includes protection of employees, students, and patients regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. It's important that all our community members understand and abide by this policy as is outlined in the Code of Conduct. Finally, our community at Einstein includes many LGBTQ employees, students, and patients. Each of us interacts with community members in some capacity, and we have a responsibility to ensure all are respected and included. Before we learn how to create welcoming, respectful environments, we have to understand some key terms. Gender identity is an individual's emotional and psychological sense of gender. It's what we know our gender to be internally. Gender expression, on the other hand, is the way in which we present our gender and the way we are perceived by society. Our clothing, hair, and mannerisms are all examples of gender expression. Sex is a category assigned at birth and is comprised of a combination of chromosomes, hormones, secondary sex characteristics, internal sex organs, and external sex organs. Finally, sexual orientation refers to the people, qualities, and characteristics we are attracted to, or our type of attraction, as well as how much attraction we experience or our level of attraction. These foundational concepts are distinct, even though they are interrelated for some. They represent aspects that we all have about ourselves. Now that we understand some of these foundational concepts, let's define some terms that have to do with one of them: sexual orientation. A heterosexual or straight person is attracted to some people of a different gender. A gay or lesbian person, on the other hand, is attracted to some people of the same gender. Gay or lesbian has replaced the term homosexual, which can be derogatory for some. Bisexual people have the ability to be attracted to some people of both the same and different genders. Asexual people don't experience any sexual attraction. This is not the same as choosing to remain celibate, and asexual people may still desire romantic relationships. There are many other labels that individuals may use to describe their sexuality. These are just a few. Now that we've discussed terms related to sexuality, let's discuss a term related to sex. Most of us were raised to think of sex as a binary or two distinct categories. According to many studies, however, up to 1 in 5,000 births differ from one of the two historically expected patterns of male and female. These individuals are born with intersex traits. Intersex has replaced the term hermaphrodite, which is considered offensive to intersex people. Finally, let's discuss some terms related to gender. Transgender is an umbrella term that refers to anyone whose gender identity or gender expression differs from societal expectations based on the sex they were assigned at birth. A transgender man was assigned female at birth and identifies as a man. A transgender woman was assigned male at birth and identifies as a woman. Some transgender people are non-binary, meaning that they do not identify as men or as women. Non-binary people may identify with no gender, or somewhere in between or outside of the categories of man and woman. Transgender people can identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, asexual, or straight, among many other sexualities. Cisgender is a term that refers to anyone whose gender identity and gender expression align with societal expectations based on the sex they were assigned at birth. Cisgender men were assigned male at birth and identify as men. Cisgender women were assigned female at birth and identify as women. With this foundation of terms and concepts, it's now time to focus on practical applications. First, it's critical to lay the groundwork for an inclusive environment for LGBTQ coworkers, students, and patients. One way to do this is through our language. Much of the language that we use on a daily basis can be incredibly gendered. Practicing gender-inclusive language is a simple way to create an inclusive environment by ensuring that we are not making assumptions about others. Here are a few examples. If you do not know the gender of someone's significant other, terms like partner and spouse demonstrate more inclusion than husband or wife. If you do not know the gender of a stranger or acquaintance, referring to them in a gender-inclusive manner can guard against assumptions. Rather than referring to someone by their perceived gender, practice referring to others with inclusive language such as, "That person in the red shirt said that they need your help with something." Finally, if you are addressing a group, avoid terms like ladies and gentlemen, as these are sweeping generalizations that may not apply to every individual you are addressing. Rather than opening with ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present to you our keynote speaker, try using a more inclusive term like colleagues, friends, or everyone. These are just a few examples of ways we can be better attentive to our language so that we can lay the groundwork for an inclusive environment for everyone. Another simple method for laying the groundwork for an inclusive environment is to display visible representations of LGBTQ inclusion. Images of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people ally stickers or signs and rainbow pride symbols are all highly visible ways to indicate support and to create a welcoming environment. Finally, practice pronoun sharing, or not making assumptions about the pronouns that someone uses. Individuals may use the pronouns she and her, he and him, the singular they and them, or another set of pronouns. This chart gives a few examples of common pronouns and how to use them, including the gender-neutral they, them, theirs, and ze, here, hers. Pronoun sharing can be as simple as sharing the pronouns you use when you share your name. For example, "Hi, my name is Juan, and I use he and him." Pronoun sharing can also be practiced by putting your pronouns in your email signature or on a name tag. If you are unsure about someone's pronouns, you can ask questions like, "What pronouns do you use?" Or, "How would you like me to refer to you?" Remember to never make assumptions about the pronouns that someone uses. By engaging in these small everyday practices, you will be contributing to a more welcoming and inclusive environment, not just for LGBTQ people, but for everyone. When someone discloses their gender identity or sexuality, it's often called coming out. There are many reasons that someone might choose to disclose their identity at work, in school, or in a healthcare setting, as well as many ways that someone might choose to come out to their colleagues, classmates, advisors, or healthcare providers. Regardless of why or how someone comes out, keep these best practices in mind. Coming out can be a huge risk for LGBTQ people who may face rejection, discrimination, or even violence after disclosing who they are. When an LGBTQ person discloses their identity to you, they are trusting you with an important piece of themselves. Acknowledge this risk and thank them for sharing with you. When someone comes out to you, it's important to believe them. Many are delegitimized and invalidated on a regular basis, so taking someone at their word can be a valuable form of support. Maintain confidentiality and do not share someone's identity with others unless they have explicitly given you permission to do so. This is their story to tell, not yours. Sharing this information with others without someone's consent can also be a violation of FERPA or HIPAA. If someone uses a term or phrase that is unfamiliar to you, clarify with them. Language is constantly evolving and shifting, and you may not recognize every term someone uses. Finally, leave space for the person's answer to shift at a later date. Though they can never be forcibly changed, gender identity and sexuality can evolve over time as we discover more about ourselves. Shifting the words we use to describe our experiences can be a normal part of identity development for many people. When someone has disclosed to you that they are LGBTQ, you may have questions that you'd like to ask. Though it's always acceptable to clarify if someone uses a term or word you do not understand, remember that LGBTQ people are not obligated to educate others on their identities or experiences, and self-education is an important part of allyship. Before you ask questions of LGBTQ people, ask yourself if these are questions you would ask heterosexual or cisgender people as well. For example, asking a transgender person about their body and any surgeries they have or have not undergone is a violation of privacy. Asking about someone's surgical status is never an appropriate question. Another example of an inappropriate question to a transgender person is, "What is your real name?" Many go by a name different from the one they were given at birth. For many, their birth name reflects a gender that they do not identify as. A transgender person's real name is the name that they use, and asking about someone's birth name is an invasion of their privacy. If you do not know what name to use, simply ask, "How would you like me to refer to you?" Asking a person with a partner of the same gender which one of them is the man or woman in the relationship is inappropriate on many levels. In the context of gender roles, relationships between two women or two men do not need to fit into societal expectations of gender roles to be legitimate. Additionally, there are many heterosexual couples whose relationships do not fit into strict notions of gender roles. In the context of sex, just as it would be inappropriate to ask a heterosexual couple about their sex life, so it is with same-gender couples. Finally, asking someone why they have to flaunt their sexuality is inappropriate because it comes from a misunderstanding of the nature of identity. Generally, people who ask this question think that things like showing affection for a partner of the same gender are flaunting sexuality, while showing similar levels of affection for a partner of a different gender would be appropriate. An LGBTQ person who lives openly and proudly is not flaunting anything. They are simply being who they are. Despite our best intentions to create an environment of inclusion, LGBTQ people can still be subjected to unequal treatment in the workplace or in school. At Einstein, we do not tolerate any behavior that creates a hostile environment for others, whether intentional or unintentional. Along with Einstein policy, New York state law protects people from discrimination in the workplace and educational settings based on sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. In some cases, Title IX also protects transgender and gender nonconforming students from discrimination or exclusion in educational settings. If you witness or experience bullying at Einstein, take the following actions. If you feel safe to do so, address the behavior publicly in the moment or privately afterward. Comments or jokes exclusive of LGBTQ people are never appropriate and should be addressed regardless of if you think an LGBTQ person overheard them. Report the behavior to your supervisor, employee relations, or student services. Remember, it's everyone's responsibility to foster a respectful, welcoming environment. Here are a few final tips to remember. LGBTQ people carry a multitude of other identities, and someone's gender identity or sexuality may not be their most salient identity. LGBTQ people may have racial, ethnic, religious, or other identities that are important to them and should be acknowledged and respected. Next, each person is the master of their own identity and may use terms specific to themselves. Always mirror the language that the other person uses and respect self-identification and self-definition. Finally, sexuality and gender identity are not always apparent, nor do they always align with our expectations. It's important not to make assumptions about others. However, do assume that you will engage with LGBTQ people on a regular basis. In doing so, you will be more likely to be aware of language and behaviors of yourself and others, and will be more mindful of creating an inclusive environment for all. Let's wrap up by putting what we've just learned into practice. What would you do? An openly gay student discloses that they are being harassed based on their sexual orientation. Which of the following actions should you take? A. Ask questions to ensure that their claim is legitimate. B. Inquire about what kind of support they need. C. Report the behavior. Or D. Both B and C. The correct answer is D. If someone discloses that they are experiencing bullying or harassment, it's important to both inquire about support as well as report the behavior to the appropriate source. Here's another. You overhear an acquaintance tell a homophobic joke. Which of the following would be acceptable responses? A. Confront the individual afterward in a private setting. B. Publicly confront the individual. C. Discuss the situation with your supervisor. D. Discuss the situation with employee relations or student services. Or E. Any of the above. The correct answer is E. Any of the above. Based on your comfort level, any of the above actions would be appropriate. Remember, it's everyone's responsibility to foster a welcoming and respectful environment. We hope that you found this module helpful. LGBTQ people are an important part of the diversity within our community at Einstein, and it's everyone's job to ensure that they are creating a welcoming and inclusive environment for all. If you have questions, concerns, or want to learn more, here is a list of both internal and external resources.